In 7th grade, I know that you learned how to solve one-step and two-step equations. And today we're going to review some of the information that you learned in 7th grade. And then we're going to move on to solving two-step and multi-step equations in the future. So today is just a review of what you already know. Before we start solving equations, I want to review the inverse operations. So if you're watching this video, please pause it at this time and write down as many inverse operations as you can remember. When we think of operations, we should be thinking about things like addition, subtraction, multiplication, when you take the square root of something. Examples like that are operations. So one operation that we're going to start with is addition. And we're going to identify the inverse operation. The inverse operation of addition is subtraction. You could also say that the inverse operation of subtraction is addition. So they are opposites of each other. Now let's think about multiplication. The inverse operation of multiplication is division. And the inverse operation of division is multiplication. So we have the operation multiplication, and its inverse is division. We have the operation division, and its inverse is multiplication. Number 3, this is something else we've been using. The inverse operation of squaring something is taking the square root. And the inverse operation of taking the square root is squaring something. You might want to draw below these a picture. So there's a picture for squaring something, and here's a picture for taking the square root. We do not need the 2 written here because it's understood that there's the root of 2 there. So you can just write the radical over some term. Right, number 4, the inverse operation of cubing something is taking the cube root. And the inverse operation of taking the cube root is cubing something. And we'll draw a picture for this as well. In this case, you have to record the root of 3. Now I want you to look at your paper and see if there was anything else that you had that is not already written on the board. Okay? If you don't have anything else, try to think for a second about what else we could add to this list. One thing I would add is along the lines of the square root and the cube root. What if you had something to a power of, let's say, 4? The inverse operation of a number written to a power of 4 would be when you take the 4th root. So the inverse operation of a power of 4 is taking the 4th root. We don't have a special name for a power of 4 like we do for squaring and cubing when we have a power of 2 and power of 3. Well, let's think of some more examples. So if you had a power of 5, the opposite would be taking the 5th root. If you had a power of 750, the inverse operation would be taking the 750th root of a number. Let's take another number. What if you had, let's say you took the 53rd root of a number. The opposite of that would be taking that number and putting it to a power of 53. So those are just some examples of inverse operations, and now we're going to apply that in solving one-step equations. When we're taking notes today, I want you to write notes in a specific way. I want you to have a larger section where we're going to solve the equation, and I want you to have a column over to the right that is titled Inverse Operations. And we're going to identify all of the inverse operations that we're using. The first example that we're going to use is 8 equals h plus 24. 8 equals h plus 24. And I want you to talk about this in a specific way. So I want you to identify, first of all, the different sides. Whatever is to the left of the equal sign, we're going to call the left side. And what is ever to the right of the equal sign, we're going to call the right side. The two sides are separated by the equal sign. So on the right side, we have our variable h. And the key to solving an equation is getting the variable alone. So we need to identify what is keeping the variable h from being alone. In this case, the 24 is what is keeping the variable from being alone. To get rid of the 24, we're going to use our inverse operations. So the operation that's going on between the h and the 24 is addition. And the inverse operation of addition is subtraction. So we're going to start by subtracting 24 from the right side. And then we have to subtract 24 from the left side, because whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side to maintain equality. So 24 minus 24 is equivalent to 0. We're not going to write 0. We're only going to write on this side what we have left, because that's going to just be a waste of time. So then on the other side, what you're going to write is what 8 minus 24 is equal to. The result of 8 minus 24 is negative 16. So we got h alone, and we found out that it's equal to negative 16. So this is our solution to the equation. What you need to do next is you need to check your work. So I want you to rewrite the original problem. So we're going to write out 8 equals h plus 24. What we're going to do next is we're going to substitute our solution in for h. So we're going to substitute negative 16 in for h. So we're just replacing h with negative 16. Negative 16 plus 24, I want you to think about that for a second. That is equivalent to 8. Since the statement here is true, 8 is equal to 8, we know that we did the problem right. We know that h equals negative 16 is a solution to the equation. Let's do another problem. Number 2. Number 2, the problem we're going to use is c minus 25 is equal to 19. c minus 25 is equal to 19. So I want you to still have your column over here for inverse operations. And we need to think about where the variable is. So the variable in this case is on the left side. And the 25 is the number that is keeping the variable from being alone. And the operation that is going on between the variable and the number is subtraction. The inverse operation of subtraction is addition. And